Welcome to the Heart of Giving podcast, brought to you by BBB Wise Giving Alliance, the nation's most experienced charity evaluator. We help donors make wise giving decisions and promote trustworthy charity practices. We thank GoFundMe for the support of this broadcast. Welcome to the Heart of Giving podcast. This is Bennett Weiner, President and CEO of the BBB Wise Giving Alliance, where we seek to strengthen public confidence in charities by promoting wise giving and trustworthy practices. And we thank GoFundMe for their support of this podcast. In today's podcast, we're going to explore how we as an organization are using AI, artificial intelligence, how we decided to use it to further our mission, and what makes AskGive, the name of the product, unique in the AI space. Our guests today on the program are Ezra Vázquez-D'Amico, Director of Digital Partnerships and Strategy, and Jeremy Kirshbaum, who is the founder and principal leader of Handshake. And we will be discussing a number of things regarding AI, but as a little bit of intro, I wanted to mention that the BBB Wise Giving Alliance has been reporting on charities for about a century. And over that time, we've used various different technologies to help the public in making their wise giving decisions. As technology changes, we pivot as well to incorporate those tools to help do a better job. And earlier this year, we hosted a gathering for charity leaders in New York City with GoFundMe, one of the supporters of this podcast, along with the Salvation Army and the Institute for the Future, where we discussed their 10-year forecast. And at this event, charity leaders reflected on the importance of centering human values in technological innovation. And the future is not fixed, but a collective effort. As such, charities have a responsibility to act as agents rather than just reactors to the technology. So I'd like to start off this discussion with both of you to talk a little bit about the AskGive project and how this came about and what was the purpose of it in placing this on the give.org website.
Sure. Everything we do is mission focused, furthering that advice that we give to donors, helping connect them with trustworthy charities, helping charities demonstrate their trustworthiness. And as the sector knows and has been discussed on this podcast, right now we're in a generosity crisis where the number of households giving to charity has decreased, and charities are more and more relying on a smaller number of wealthier donors. And while that's the case, it doesn't have to be the case. And we want to help kind of reach more donors, reach the broader public. That said, there's also a trust gap. As our 2024 donor trust report showed, 67% of donors say it's highly important to trust a charity before giving, yet only 22% said that they highly trust charities. So we're dealing with that gap, and our tools, our charity reports, our advice articles, this podcast, we work to kind of help close that gap. But we were thinking, well, how can we do that using new technologies? When we started out as an organization, we published the Wise Giving Guide. We still do a magazine with advice articles and then a listing of the charities we evaluate and how they perform in relation to the 20 BBB Charity Standards. Later, with the advent of the internet, we started putting those reports online and publishing advice articles online as well. So with AI, we felt, well, we're ready to take the next step, and we wanted to explore whether AI could help us do those activities.
Thanks, Ezra. And I think one of the objectives is for a tool using AI to provide a search for certain information using all the information available on give.org and being able to develop its own answer based on that information. Jeremy, you want to talk about that process of how we get all the information to be accessed and for the program actually to work properly in terms of giving an answer that the public can understand?
We had a really great time working with give.org on this, and particularly Ezra leading internally. It's a huge effort to make something like this. You have to get all the data together and consult really deeply with subject matter experts so that the way that the information is coming through is really loyal to the brand and intent of the organization. It's amazingly easy to create a system that takes really deep, powerful information and makes it extremely boring and generic. And so you need to be careful not to do that. But I, it is important also, give.org has this like incredible repository of wise giving advice and research, wise giving guides, podcasts, YouTube videos, webinars. Like you really could name it, what modality and what perspective, and it's too much for a retail donor to wade through. Someone who wants to know about animal rights charities or environmental charities doesn't always have the time to read through several reports worth of info. And so being able to get people better information about how to give and do so safely and in a trustworthy way um, was really a compelling idea to us. And um, really built on a couple of things internally at BBB Wise Giving Alliance. One was the subject matter expertise. You already had all this information and insight available for us to build on. And then two, it was a lot of work that you all had already done on digital transformation. A lot of your data was already organized. You were already aware of the spread of where things sit. You're already doing a lot of thoughtful work in the background about how to bring this to people. And so that let us move relatively quickly on this. Ezra, I don't know if you want to build on that. You led a lot of that work.
Yeah, and it was a process. I think what makes AskGive different than, just a customer service chatbot you see anywhere is that it was really built around our identity as an organization. And that came through discussions with staff. We had an AI team, but then we asked every person in the organization what they thought. We had Jeremy and his team talk to Shakila, who even answers our phone and answers donors' questions directly to see, well, what tone do you use when you're answering questions? What kind of questions are coming in? What kind of answers are people looking for? What kind of answers do they not like, to kind of help shape the bot itself. And so through all that, we came up with, a few things that we wanted in the bot. Obviously, we wanted the conversational interface, what Jeremy mentioned before, the cause-based searches, because especially younger donors or younger people who want to do good, they don't necessarily have an organization that they're affiliated with that they know and trust already. So they'll come to the tool and say, hey, I want to support animal organizations. But if they were coming just to our website, they might not know the name of a charity to look at. So we wanted to kind of close that gap with kind of cause-based conversational interactions. And then something that was also very important to us, we started this project a while back, and I think this is still the case. When you ask AI a question, generally you can kind of trust it, but you want to verify. We built the tool to only draw on our resources, but beyond that, when the tool gives an answer, we wanted to make sure that people knew where that answer was coming from, and also give them the opportunity to explore deeper. So the tool produces an answer, and then underneath it has resource links. So if you're asking about a charity, it'll display the charity reports link. If you're asking, how to get off a charity's mailing list or how to donate a car, there'll be advice articles about that below the answer itself.
I know that one of the cultural distinctions in how we do our work is that in this organization, there's a focus on the value of accuracy and the importance of it in building trust. One of the criticisms of AI in terms of the programs that are out there is that while they quickly gather an answer from all sorts of available sources, there's a certain degree of inaccuracy that can take place. And you talked about that vetting being a concern. When we launched this project, we wanted to maintain that accuracy objective. And one of the ways that we thought that this would be accomplished was by confining the information that the program used to just the information that's on the give.org website itself. It's not using outside sources. It's using the information already on the site, which has been significantly vetted by us before it is used and available to the public. Even charity reports, copies of them in draft form are shared with the charities before being posted so they can verify its accuracy and let us know of any corrections, as well as comment on any conclusions that we have before we finalize the report. So these are very important cultural distinctions that we have as an organization that we wanted to maintain and grow with this AI tool. Were there some challenges in accomplishing that in the way that we wanted to at the get-go? In other words, how easy was it to access all that information in one fell swoop and do it so quickly? Or is that pretty much the way the program works for everyone?
Certainly a lot of challenges, normal challenges with this kind of system, but challenges nonetheless. There's accuracy in the sense of getting people answers that are already on the site, but then also making sure that the answer they get is what they were actually going for. But then there's actually this layer on top of accuracy, which is that you do want the tool to be able to go beyond question answering, at least a little bit. If someone says, help me think about the ways in which I might support animal rights, or help me think about the ways in which I might support um, environmental causes, you want it to be able to take the information on the site and go beyond it a little bit and go back and forth with the person to an extent, so that they don't get a robotic experience that that isn't reflective of the way that they would engage with give.org on the website, or talking to the experts in the Wise Giving Alliance network. And that's delicate, right? Because that level of interpretation has to happen in a brand safe way. There's probably 20 or 30 different things that give.org pays attention to. Not a simple example would be that we never want to say that one accredited charity is better than another, because that's not what give.org does. You accredit charities, and at that point you leave it up to the donor. But we do want to make sure that people know everything beyond that, everything we do know about the charity. And if we are asking them to think through different charities, or different ways of giving, we want to help them do that. So there's it's a challenge, but also an opportunity to meet people where they're at and kind of give them a taste of this type of advice and advising that they might not be able to encounter otherwise.
The way you're describing it, AI isn't just a search tool that you ask a question and it gives you the answer one to one. How hard is it to wrangle an AI and make it reflect an organization's culture? For the charities that may be listening to this, is it super easy to spin up something, that you see at the bottom of a lot of websites out there,
Yeah.
but that also reflects who they are and the type of questions they want answered and the type of journeys that, their constituents, want to go on?
Yeah, it's very possible and very difficult, and it's a little bit misleading, right? Because you can get to about something that's about 70% of what we made in a couple of weeks for $20 a month, and then that last 30% just you never get there unless you build something custom. And Ezra, you know very well that that what really goes into making sure it gets to that 100% is these evaluation parameters, building out lots of different queries where we show what good looks like and are constantly testing against that, and making sure that we have the tooling to be able to observe that, and making sure that we have the dynamic with the subject matter experts and your team in order to go back and forth. And now that we have users using it, monitoring how they're using it. But it's a lot of work up front, for your team and our team to build out that and define what good looks like over time. And you forget a lot of things at the beginning, right? As you're using it, you new requirements emerge. So it's that last 30% and coming to that understanding that makes it really possible, but harder than it might look at first.
Well, the other thing I noticed with the AskGive project is that I was very impressed with the tone and language that the AI program provides in response to questions, uh, put into the system. It took a while to get there, but I think it was worth the effort because we have a result that does not sound robotic and sounds like someone is just talking to you to provide an answer. And we wanted the information that was being shared to be friendly enough so that people would use it, effectively. And that's not an easy thing to achieve. It takes a little bit of trial and error because we worked on this for quite a number of months to achieve that end result. Is that often the case? Let's say if you're working with a client that wants to get tone right, it's really trial and error until you get to the right spot.
Yes, I mean, we think of it as kind of like an augmented editorial process. I think that often when you're dealing with software and nowadays with generative AI teams, um, people, the technical teams don't realize the importance of branding. And even in the nonprofit and charity world, brand is really important, and some thousands, sometimes millions of dollars go into deciding that you want to be friendly versus professional versus robotic versus and it really matters in terms of how you reach your audience and in what way you want to interact as an organization. And so this is the part of the design process that we call the LUX, or the language user experience, that sits below the UX, or the user experience of the software, that really defines how people interact with it, because it's both website content and software at the same time. And so you need the editorial rigor of content as you would with any other content on your website, and you need the repeatability and reliability of software as you would with any other software feature. And that sits kind of at the center of it.
When we were designing this tool, we had a broad sense of the type of questions that would likely be asked and that we wanted to design for. And it seems like most of the questions do fall into those categories. Some of the main types of questions we get is this organization trustworthy? Or tell me about, such and such organization. Or specific pieces of information on how to give. For example, how do I get off a mailing list? How do I donate my car? What should I do in the face of a disaster? How can I help? Or how can I give? Then there's a lot of cause lookups. What sort of organizations support breast cancer research? And then there's the larger questions like, what do you do to the tool itself, or asking about our work, what the seal means, what charity accreditation means. Without getting too technical, Jeremy, could you talk a little bit about what happens when a question goes into the system and how it gets routed, or what happens, I guess, a little bit under the hood in a broad kind of sense, so that people might understand that?
Well, so we have at Handshake, we have a system called Lore that does this routing, and that all our client projects are built on. And it allows us to take in a user question or a user query or a user comment, um, and send it to a bunch of different places that combine different kinds of search and generation. So what does that mean? When you're in a simple chatbot, all that's happening is that you say something and it goes to the AI and it comes back. But with a system like this, a few different steps have to happen. We have to make sure that the information gets pulled in the right way. You basically have to build a little search engine over all the data. And then it has to go to the AI. And then sometimes you'll rewrite it. It'll write one copy and then you want to check it for something. And all these things have to happen fast enough that the user isn't sitting there waiting for minutes and minutes waiting for a response. And so we do a lot of work both for safety, so that if someone puts something in that isn't supposed to go in there, because this isn't a generic chatbot, we don't need people to be able to look for recipes for pie, or to write Python programs, or anything that isn't about wise giving. So we can throw those out, and then with critical questions, make sure that people are getting where they need to go really quickly, and getting specific answers that are more tightly controlled than other answers.
When we were first working together and you were explaining how it works, it was really interesting to understand that the AI, you know, asks itself a question, checks the answer, modifies the language, and all of these things are happening on top of each other in the background in a matter of seconds before an answer comes out. And then especially, the guardrails component was interesting.
So Ezra, for our viewers and listeners, can you just briefly describe how someone can access AskGive on the give.org website, how it works that way?
Sure. It's on every page of give.org. When you arrive to the site for the first time, you'll see it open on your right hand. On the charity reports, it's minimized down in the right hand corner so that you can see the information on the charity report. But it's on every page, and you can ask it questions. There's also a full page version, so that if you're on your phone or on your laptop and you want to have a deeper conversation and kind of see the full responses and scroll back and forth, that's on give.org/askgive.
Ezra, could you provide us with some examples of how individuals have typically used AskGive to find out more about charities or donating? What types of questions do they ask? What are some good case examples?
Sure. It's actually been really fun to be able to look at all the queries that come in, and they really go across the gamut. But generally, as you might expect, people are asking about particular charities. Perhaps, one that they might have gotten a mailer from, one that they might have gotten an email about, or seen on social media. So, is this charity trustworthy? Do they meet the BBB standards? That's probably the most common question. Then there's oftentimes people who come and they have a particular cause they care about, be it animals, be it, heart health, and they ask questions around, so how can I help this cause? What sort of charities do this sort of work? What should I think about when trying to contribute to making a difference around, any particular area? Then often people ask very specific questions for advice on giving. For example, how do I do in-kind donations? Where can I donate clothes? How do I get off a charity's mailing list? And then there's also a range of questions where it seems like people are challenging AskGive to give off-topic answers. And it's been interesting to see, the bots, the tools guardrails are doing pretty well. They'll say, "Oh, give me a recipe," or people ask, which charity is better, charity X or charity Y? And AskGive, we trained it to not rank charities as one better or another. It says something to the effect of AskGive does not rank or rate charities against each other. Give.org provides information to help donors make their own informed decisions rather than determining which charities are superior to others. But then people will be like, no, really, tell me which one is better. So it's been heartening to see that AskGive, stays true to its values in terms of, staying on message and, respecting, every charity, based on the evaluation and the report we have with us.
Do you, in regards to organizations taking on AI, do you think that some of the reluctance to using it is fear? Do you think organizations are concerned about issues and the unknown, so to speak, and therefore that's preventing them from even giving it a try?
Yeah, I think uncertainty is a big part of it. organizations have limited budgets, limited time. They have people that they're already serving in the way that they serve them that's already working. And so it takes a lot of bravery to jump into a ecosystem and a technology that doesn't have best practices yet, where you really have to make it up as you go along. And so it takes an organization who's really committed to innovation and wants to participate in where the technology goes and staying at the cutting edge. And that's not every org, but um, the some of the uncertainty is starting to solidify at this point. There are ways emerging that can make the systems reliably safe, can make them reliably accurate, and where you really can get a consistent experience for folks. But the tactics for doing that aren't widespread. I don't want to toot our own horn too much, but we have been working on generative AI and natural language processing applications for 5 or 6 years now, which in any other ecosystem would not be very long at all. But in this particular one is a notable amount of experience. And so we've developed some internal strategies for managing it that we share as much as we can with folks. And I do think that if people are not sure when to get involved, I do think it's a good time now. We're out of the very earliest stages of this technology, and parts of it are starting to mature and become really robust. And it's a good time to start experimenting.
Jeremy, I'm thinking of the broader issue for the whole AI industry right now. Could you perhaps say something about how you feel the industry is addressing concerns about misleading info, transparency, privacy, and other issues that people have raised about the emergence of AI?
I think my highest level feeling is that this is a really new technology, and and our old rules are not going to really work that well. Our old cultural understanding and sensibilities about privacy, copyright, um, verifiable information, what information people should get when. I think that these really need to be thought through in a new, different way that um, is native to the completely original capabilities of this technology. And I think it's really exciting to me to see charities and nonprofits getting involved in actually trying this out. I don't think that this is something where you can sit at the sidelines and simply commentate on it. I think you need to be involved to understand what goes into it. And when charities and nonprofits do that, then you have people with the right incentives contributing to that conversation and doing it in a really rigorous and credible way. And so I don't have the answer to that, but I think that there needs to be that a lot of. I'm glad that there's thinking going into it, and I think a lot of things will change. And I think the best thing is just to make sure that the right people are at the table in that conversation, and that as many people as possible get to contribute.
The, uh, the other thought, Jeremy, as I'm listening to your response, is the future a little bit. This is an evolving uh, program and ability, and it's going really fast. Uh, is AI going to become more intelligent than humans in a short amount of time? And I mean, how quickly is this going to become something much larger or more significant than we realize now?
Well, I mean, I think it's already smarter than me, but perhaps we want to set the bar a bit higher than that. um, it is a really fast moving industry, and I think that the technology is going to continue to evolve really quickly and get a lot better. And I don't know what the consequences of that will be. It does mean that as soon as you're done building something, there's all these exciting new things to try, which could be is both exciting and a little frustrating. uh, the best way, like way to deal with it is just to, as much as you can, stay involved and to try and find the things that you can do that benefit the people that you want to benefit. Um, and yeah, I think that yeah, the risks, I'm glad that give.org and other clients of ours are taking the risks seriously, but not taking them so seriously that they don't act. Because then what happens is only people who don't take risks seriously act, and we get negative consequences there. So I would say uh, it's good to be cautious, but don't let it prevent you from getting involved.
Good point. Ezra, also, I'm thinking, I know you have a comment, but in your answer, could you tell us a little about what you see as the future for AskGive in terms of how it might change down the road?
Sure. When we were designing AskGive, we were very thoughtful to always have a human-centered focus where we put decisions in the hands of people. I think so much now AI is being used to take decisions away from people. If you're unsure on whether you should go to the doctor or not, rather than sitting down and having a thoughtful conversation with yourself or potentially going to the doctor and getting that advice, it's a lot easier to spin up a GPT and be like, hey, should I go, yes or no, and take that decision making away from yourself. So in the charitable sector, we wanted to make sure that we present information about the charities that we evaluate, this high quality data that we get for the charity reports that's submitted by the charities, that's reviewed by humans, and then put it back in the hands of users, but without saying, hey, this is a good charity, this is a bad charity, this charity's better than this one ranks higher. We wanted to present the information to people to keep them at the center of decision making. So we're going to continue doing that with future versions of AskGive. I think our most immediate next step is we're connecting AskGive to our database of charity information, to the full database. And it'll be in a structured format where people will be able to search, give me 5 charities that work on animal issues that are also in my state. And do that kind of tabular searches. Jeremy can talk about how that's a lot more complicated, but I think, we feel like that's going to empower donors, again, put them at the center of decision making even more to allow them to get into even more nuanced queries.
The other thing I'd say for people listening to this podcast is the call to action that we want them to take is try out AskGive. Go to our give.org website, put in a question. It could be about a specific charity or it could be about giving in general or about some other issue related to donating that might be available on our site, and try it out and see how you like it. And if you have thoughts about what you see, give us some feedback at askgive@give.org. And we'd be delighted to hear from you to learn more about how you think we can further improve this tool. I also put contact information for Jeremy in this podcast. So for charities that want to contact you, to find out more about your firm, that they have a way to easily address that. Are there other calls to action that you think that charities should consider, either Jeremy or Ezra, that I didn't mention that you'd also like to share?
I'll echo yours. Please, we love feedback. Please let us know how we can make the tool better. If you go on and you feel really annoyed by it, please email me personally at jeremy@handshake.fyi. We'd love to make it better for you. And also, this is just one way to bring knowledge to life. And as Ezra was touching on, we're in the process of doing some cool data analysis type stuff with give.org in our next versions. But think about how, with your knowledge base, you could build reports for people. You could have it speak to people through voice over the phone. If you have a set of knowledge and a way of thinking that needs to get to more people, the formats are so open ended now. It's really exciting time to be building in the space.
And then I would say, for folk in the charitable sector, if you haven't yet, start using AI, even, just personally. I think there's the tendency to be like, oh, I don't understand it enough to use it. And it's often seen as like, either I really have to understand it to be able to use it, or I'm not going to use it at all, I'd say the way you start to understand it is by using it. So, play with AskGive, play with the LLM tools that are out there, start getting to know how it answers questions, what it does, and then you can start thinking about how to use it in your work. And then finally, I guess a little plug, we're putting together a webinar series or a series of conversations with folk like Jeremy, where charities can come join the conversation. We'll present a little bit about AskGive, for example, and then people can ask questions. And we'll have a whole series of these coming up in the next month. So stay tuned for that.
Well, Jeremy and Ezra, I want to thank you for an engaging discussion on AskGive and AI in general, and appreciate everything that you shared. And my special thanks to Jeremy for the great result we had with this product. I think it's given us really a step into the future ahead of a lot of others that are still trying to figure out how to go about it. So I know we have a long way to go. There's a lot more that we need to do because it's only accessing some of the charity data, not all of it, but we'll get there. But first big toe in the water, so to speak, and I'm glad that we're there, and we couldn't have done it without your help. So thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate what Handshake has done.
Thanks, Ben. It's been really great working with you.
I look forward to the next Heart of Giving podcast as we further explore charities and accountability. Thank you.